Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So today, we got a super sweet one. It's a burn deck. You know I'm not the biggest fan of burn, but at the same time, I am a big fan of budget-friendly decks, and this is a legacy burn deck. Recently took Nick Taylor to a top 4 finish at a SCG Super IQ, so congrats to Nick on their finish with the deck. But the big deal here is it's $150. If you're familiar at all with Legacy and how decks cost $2,000, $3,000, this is a super ultra budget Legacy deck with a lot of cards that are fairly common and easy to get your hands on thanks to reprinting. They've recently been in Standard, and they can actually compete in Legacy. So if you're looking for a cheap entryway into the Legacy format, this might be the deck for you. So a quick reminder before we break down this ultra budget Legacy burn deck: if you enjoyed this deck and want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular has a shot at being made into videos next week. So the burn deck we're talking about today is pretty straightforward. So we got Monastery Swiftspear, the best, most efficient, most cost-effective one-drop in Legacy for burn decks. Yes, it's not Goblin Guide. Goblin Guide is great, but Goblin Guide is super expensive. Monastery Swiftspear sees play even in non-budget builds because it gets in for 1 damage right away, and then it consistently attacks for 2 or 3 damage thanks to prowess. Eidolon of the Great Revels punishes players for casting cheap spells, and yes, it's gonna give us damage from almost everything that we cast, but we're set up to really deal a lot of damage to our opponent. So the idea is, even though it's doing 2 to us when we cast our lightning bolts and swift spears, it's going to hurt our opponent more and make it really hard for them to do what they want to do. And then Simian Spirit Guide is a 2/2, can also speed things up a little bit as far as our mana is concerned. Kind of a weird choice. I'm not really sold on Spirit Guide in a burn deck, because I think you want something that deals more damage, but this deck was successful, so who am I to argue? And then we have the big kicker. If you're going to use Simian Spirit Guide for mana, probably the best thing you can do with it in the deck is power out a Sulfuric Vortex a little bit faster. Sulfuric Vortex is incredibly powerful, deals 2 damage to each player at the beginning of their upkeep, and then it prevents any life gain from happening. So it just does everything you want to do in a burn deck. If an opponent can't deal with it, it's just going to drain them away, and they're going to die before you do, even though, again, like Eidolon, you're taking damage because you got lightning bolts and lava spikes to throw at their face, and they probably don't. Also have a Searing Blood to deal with creatures. The mana base in this deck is all mountains, no fetch lands. That's part of the reason why it's so cheap. So in a fetch land deck, you might play a Searing Blaze, but that has landfall. Searing Blood does a respectable job of killing a creature and dealing some damage and doesn't have the landfall restriction. As far as the burn, we essentially have 16 lightning bolts. Well, 16 lava spikes. Not all of these spells can hit creatures, but they're 3 damage for 1 mana that we can send at our opponent's face. So ideally, we would get down a Swift Spear or something and then just keep lava spiking our opponent's face until they die pretty quickly. And then we have the big finishers in the deck. Price of Progress. Everyone's playing dual lands in Legacy, so it's very common for Price of Progress to be 4 damage for 2 mana, 6 damage, 8 damage for 2 mana, just a ton of damage out of nowhere, instant speed. And Fire Blast is 4 damage that really catches people by surprise because you can cast it while you're tapped out by just sacking 2 mountains. So it's another really powerful big burn spell. So the combo of these 2 cards, you can theoretically, with just 2 lands, tap 2 mana, Price of Progress for, let's say, 6 damage if your opponent has 3 non-basics. And then, even with your 2 lands tapped, you just sack them for Fire Blast, 4 more damage. That's 10 damage out of nowhere to kill the opponent. Mana base wise, like I said, 18 mountains, super straightforward. In the sideboard, this is the control deck package. Koth of the Hammer, repeatable damage, stays out on the battlefield. Exquisite Firecraft, a little expensive as a 4 mana sorcery, but can't be countered. A red Elemental Blast to deal with opposing counter spells, or like a Jace or some blue permanent. And then Scab Clan Berserker kind of does a weird Eidolon impression where it can deal repeated damage once it's renowned. Very good against Storm because it triggers whenever a non-creature is cast. More creature removal in the Forced Searing Blood and a Dismember. And then some specific hate, a Tormod's Crypt for Graveyard decks, Smash to Smithereens to take care of artifacts, also deal some damage, and a Phyrexian Revoker. So that is ultra budget burn for legacy. And that's been our instant deck tech for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon.